In Joe's Biden's farewell address, he talked about the oligarchy, as you alluded to. I read the transcript of it because I couldn't. It's another thing I couldn't watch. It was
Yeah,
putting
I
me to
didn't watch it.
sleep. I was like, oh, I'm going to sleep. It's like, oh my God, can you just go ahead and put glasses on? Look, I'll do it. Put your glasses on. It's okay. You know, read. You know, I couldn't.
He
It
has
just
a good face for glasses. He would look good in glasses.
he looks fantastic in glasses. We
Yeah.
know this. Anyway, okay, that's a side note. So he's talking about this danger of the oligarchy, and he's combining that because it's the technocrats, right? The tech bros, and they're all in the social media and they're all into the controlling the discourse. He's combining that with and owning things like the Washington Post and owning the town square of what used to be Twitter. He's combining that with this idea of how dangerous an oligarchy is when it's coming from, especially, a place where it's about uh, showering the public, the citizenry, with misinformation and disinformation, and this sort of obliteration of truth that's going to happen. So, why are those two things connected? Is if we keep pulling on that, we'll see, oh my God, there's so much in here. There's so much in here that we knew already, but it's important to kind of retread and look at. The oligarchy that we're going to be stuck with, and as everybody knows on this show, but just to reiterate, an oligarchy is when the government fuses itself with very rich, not monarchs, right, but arcs, right? People who have
Arcs.
concentration of wealth and power into the hands of very few individuals, and they begin to fuse in with the state. And the state starts doling out resources or agencies or natural resources, things like maybe all of healthcare, to these oligarchs to just take over. And it's not necessarily that they privatize it so much, it's that they not only get our tax dollars, but it's re-engineering everything to where they're paid to be rich and to stay rich, not from the businesses that they got rich off of, but by us on behalf of the state.
Yeah.
So, it's when it gets into that, the corruption, of course, runs amok. But basically, that's a mafia state. That's a mafia state. If they're above the law, if they're fused with a thug autocrat, which is what he is, and then they have their hands in our cookie jar. It's our cookie jar. It's not a cookie jar they built that we like to purchase cookies from. It's literally our cookie jar.
Yeah.
So when you think of that and why that's so important to bring up in terms of our democracy, I think it's important to and then I'll get to the propaganda piece of this. It's important to remind people, because they're beginning to forget, or they get so blindsided by stuff or chaotic with things, that they can't be grounded into this facts of who and what we are. These are our agencies. These are our institutions. These are our resources from some 250 years of being a nation that we spent year by year, election cycle by election cycle, electing leaders, pouring our tax dollars in, putting our efforts into hiring citizens, forming the agencies to which the citizens are hired that have expertise, perfecting our institutions of education so that we actually have people who are educated and qualified, so that they can not just invent stuff that helps pouring into our society and lets us lead the world, but they actually have a skill set to run a government that's our government, that provides us the things that we want our government provide, so that we can address the needs of this vast nation. It's the sacrifice of all of our sons and brothers and sisters and mothers and daughters and fathers and grandfathers in the military, in the front lines for first responders and domestically, to make sure that we have liberty, that we're safe, that all of this investment We have invested generation after generation, every single individual citizen, every single one of us has invested in the nation to build and develop the institutions and the agencies and the resources that we can then use as a nation with the elected officials governing with us, that we have the power to vote in and out depending on how we want to push our nation forward and then share in those resources. It's us. It's not Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg, but now with an oligarchy where you also have a mobster, a mafia in there, a mob-oligarchy is what I call that, in that specific position. These people are his lieutenants now, and they're getting our resources as their territory to run and exploit and rape and pillage for themselves. So that's going to affect every single person in this nation in a negative way unless you're in on their coattails as another rich person benefiting from them, benefiting from the head of the, if you're in the crime family, you probably have some protection and you'll have some resources available and allocated for you. If you're not, you're a target. You're a mark.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish I was there behind Joe Biden explaining it that way to people. And how does that circle around and connect? Well, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, Elon, who created Twitter, Elon Musk, those men coming out of Silicon Valley got their start from the Kremlin's money. Those were the oligarchs over there in that oligarchy that invested in Silicon Valley and were laundering their money that they had pillaged from the Russian people, the Soviet Union, that they had in their resources. They made an investment over here with us in and developed Silicon Valley, especially with those guys, which is why they're also tightly aligned. So how did Russia, as a place that is very, very good at lining up their monarchs and, plowing them down with bullets or overthrowing that government, how did the Russian people, why are they okay with an oligarchy after all the revolutions? How do you make it so that works? Well, you have to control that population. So what kind of tools do you need to control the population? You control the population with propaganda, with misinformation and disinformation, and controlling all of the airwaves and controlling everything people read, taking over education, doing all of that. If you can control what people are, the information coming into people and how they are able to manage a discourse with one another, if you can have control over that, then you can suppress the population from rising up against you and throwing you out.